Thanks so much for joining us today, Lee. Maybe you could take a moment and just introduce yourself.
Sure. My name is Lee Hennessy. I'm the owner and founder of Moxie Ridge Farm and Creamery. It's a small, diversified farm and a New York State licensed creamery in Washington County. I am the farmer. I am the cheesemaker. And it's pretty much a one-man show, which is important to consider when we're talking about kind of getting through this year and this season. The primary focus, I would say, of the farm in terms of income is the cheese making. I have a herd of primarily alpine goats. It's a closed herd that I've been developing. So I milk them here. That milk goes into cheese making. The whey from the cheese making process gets fed to a small herd of pigs that I run every year. So I do a forest raised pork. They're processed after the acorns drop every year. So it's like an acorn finished whey fed pork. I have a small meat and fiber flock of sheep. And some laying chickens and things like that. So I obviously focus primarily on livestock. And the kind of philosophy of the farm is to be making foods that are closer to like pre-industrialized traditions. So that influences a lot of my farming practices. Most of my inputs for my animals come from either my farm or the 10 miles surrounding it here in Washington County. I'm very passionate about the concept of terroir. That means that, I might do things a little bit differently. Things might not be as efficient, whether it's in labor, timing, economics, feed buying. I'm not buying from, a big like national conglomerate. I buy from a family farm. So yeah, that's what I'm really passionate about. So that's like, that gives you a bit of a snapshot of the farm and the focus here.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. And where with a lot of the products, so whether it's the cheese or some of the meats or other products, where do you mostly market those?
So pre-pandemic, I was pretty much 100% direct to consumer. Right now I'm in my 4th season. The previous to this year, it was local markets, and pretty much the financial backbone of my farm was driving down from Washington County, which for anyone that doesn't know, it is in New York and it borders Vermont. Driving down to New York City and selling in the Union Square market once a week. So that was a really important part of the business side of the farm. I'd just gotten grants, and I'm still finishing up a creamery renovation to make it more doable for me to do wholesale cheeses, and to buy milk from farms that have the same kind of philosophies as me, that produce cow milk, which I don't do. So this year originally was going to be like the big wholesale year, and expanding, maybe doing like a couple of other New York City markets and things like that. So almost 100% direct to consumer. My pre-farming background has a lot of marketing direct to consumer stuff in it. I was very comfortable with that. And as you can imagine, farming the way that I farm, relying on retail pricing is very important, just in terms of the economics of it. So now, after the pandemic or during the pandemic, I did stop going down to New York City. This is another reason why it's important to remember, like, I am a one-man show. I do have staff now, which I didn't always, but it's me. And I was not comfortable going down and interacting with that many people. So when that went away, when that income went away, obviously it was a big hit for sure.
Yeah.
Actually. So and maybe this is something we'll be talking about, but I took the time to kind of create what a lot of farms are doing, to do a like farm to doorstep line, that where I like owned everything, from the food to the actual drop off.
Yeah.
And so that's where most of my income is coming from right now.
Yeah. The adjustment you made, the pivot that you made, was to start, I'm aware of, well, wait, let me step back just for a second. You talked about the quality of the product and the ability to do so much direct marketing. I just wanted to say firsthand, I've had some of the cheese and it is amazing. So it's totally true. And not nearly as much as I would like, but I've had some, and I'd like to get more. But in terms of having to make a really dramatic adjustment, I'm aware of you doing the Moxie boxes. Is that right? Could you talk a little bit about that change, and I guess partly describe what you're doing, but if you could go a little bit into how did you make that change? What did that look like on a day-to-day level for you to have to shift everything?
I think one thing I should include in as like a tag to, or like a tag on to your previous question, is like what I was looking at, and it'll give a little bit of info for like the reason behind Moxie Box. What I was looking at this year in terms of income, just in terms of revenue, was about 3.5 roughly times the revenue of the previous year. I decided what I needed. I wanted a really beautiful experience. I wanted to be able to reach new people. I wanted to be able to take the skills that I had outside of farming on the marketing side, be able to build something that, even though it might take a lot more time, would be easy for me to market, and I could just set up like a marketing plan for it and let it kind of do its thing. And on the farm side, for me to for it to logistically work for me and for other farms. So throughout that, it became more of like a mission. Like the whole point of this business was to sell my food. The whole point of it was to make money for this farm. And so when I opened it up to other farms, I was just like, why don't we just take the same approach? Like, if I can sell my stuff, as long as I'm not losing money through Moxie Box, like I don't need Moxie Box as the name of the service. Because again, the name of my farm is Moxie Ridge Farm. As long as I'm not losing money, like I don't need to make money on this service. What I need to do is to make sure that people are buying my food and buying food from other farms around here. So basically, what I would do is I would take, 10% of my sales and I would put it back into Moxie Box to pay for the website and pay for the hosting and all of that stuff. And so that's what I just started asking other farmers to do as well. So they're making, basically farmers market. So, and that's been, now it's like, it's a unique set of problems, which we can kind of get into later. But in terms of how it was received by people, people were really excited about it. We do a no contact delivery. We're starting a drive-through pickup. And I think that it's because of the way that it's set up and because of the way that it's marketed. I wanted to reach people that weren't buying in the farmers market. And so while we have people that are like, I'm already excited about local food, it's nice to be able to be bringing in some new people and getting them excited about what we're growing here.
Yeah, it's amazing to hear about all the details of that kind of transition, and I feel like I want to recognize that we're going to do a little bit of a wrap up pretty soon. So I want to shoot a couple of fast questions your way. We'll just get some flavor from you to like a quick reaction and answer there. But there's so many things we could go into there that I think would be really interesting for any viewer, especially I think a lot of farmers, to hear about the actual day-to-day work of developing that kind of service, the logistics of working with other farmers, coordinating something based on the infrastructure you have, the production type you have, the season that it is, all these things. It's so nuanced and moving to that it's really complicated. And I think it's easy to say, oh yeah, well, this thing happened, I made a transition, now we're doing this. It's so much more complicated than that. It'd be interesting to dig into that. I recognize we don't have time. I feel like you also mentioned things like accessing land that you knew eventually would not be the right scale, and it'd be fun at some point to dig into that. So basically, I'm just saying there's going to be a lot of follow-up we're going to have to do at some point.
Sure. And I'll jump out and say that, like, you know, my probably my most active platform is on Instagram. So like, if anybody is watching this and they're like, oh, how did this happen, or what platform did you use, or what's this, like, I'm a million% transparent with it. Like, I want other people to learn from my mistakes and to learn from the stuff that's making money. So like, people can totally reach out to me on Instagram. It's at Moxie Ridge Farm, and like, send me a message. We'll talk.
That's great. Thank you. Is there any other contact info or sites, so if people wanted to learn more about the Moxie box or about the farm in general?
Oh yeah, if you want to take a look at it, Moxie box is just moxie-box.com. And my farm is just moxieridgefarm.com.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So one quick rapid fire question. I think this is just to help for people who are listening get their head around what this looks like on a personal level. Could you give me an estimate on like start time and stop time of a workday? I know. I think it's important. If you're comfortable sharing that, you don't have to.
No, absolutely. Like, so this morning was 5:30. And so a lot of times the summer can be grueling because it's animals. I have no experience as a vegetable farmer, so yes, I wouldn't want to live in your shoes, but my shoes. We're all diurnal, so a lot of it deals with the sun. So it's like go from when the sun's up to when the sun's down. Let's say maybe like 5:30, check on, are the sheep out? Of course the sheep are out, like deal with that, maybe fix some fencing, come back in. Morning is like computers time. And then there's milking and wholesale and all the rest of it. So like from beginning to end, it depends on what staff is around, but it could be anything from, sleeping in and it's 7:30 and, I'm done at 10 to, somebody kidded overnight and, I go to bed at 4 and then I wake up at 5 to like get ready to do all of my packing for Moxie box deliveries and then like go out and drive all day. So it's not cute. And it's not like, I'm definitely not the person that's like, everybody should do exactly what I do, because it's super grueling at times. Sometimes it's like, 9 o'clock and I'm like, I made my feta batch and like my creamery is perfectly clean and like I'm done and I'm gonna like fall asleep immediately. So long answer for a short question.
No, that's great. I think it's nice to hear the nuance and and you're certainly not alone. And I think putting in those kind of long, hard days with farmers. And I think that it's good for people to know about that the amount of work that really goes into producing high quality food and food in general. So thank you for all the hard work.
Yeah.
So two last quick, they could go on forever, but like, if you could do sort of a short answer for what you're thinking. One is, what do you think people can be doing right now to help? What could they know or be doing to help farms, their local farms? What's something
like as consumers?
As consumers, as people living in wherever they live and there's farms near them.
Honestly, I'll give 2 ways to not help and 2 ways to help, and I'll keep it short. One thing that does not help is asking to visit the farm. We're all going crazy bananas right now, just trying to keep all the plates in the air. So it's not, unless it's an agritourism setup, don't call, don't ask to visit, don't bring your kids, don't stop by. Like, we're trying to, there's a drought going on there, it's kidding season. Like, there is a lot happening. That doesn't help. On the other side, what does help is like go to the Facebook page, figure out where these farms are, figure out what farmers market. If you're not comfortable at the farmers market, ask if you can do like a quick pickup and like pick it up, when they're packing up or, in the morning. But understand that like we want to help you. We want to get our food into your hands, but we also are trying to keep our businesses afloat and try and pivot and trying to be as agile as possible and bending, what feels like, bending over backwards if somebody is like, oh, I want to do like this whole, big custom order because I want to support my farm. This goes into number 2 of what not to do. Like I do meat. And so people like are freaking out about like, there's not enough meat. There's no meat in the supermarket. People think that it's helpful to be like, I want to buy a huge amount of meat from you. But they're also expecting like a package. So I do like custom meat, right? I do whole and half hogs. That's gone. It's like, if you want it, you need to order it a year in advance and then it gets delivered and it's gone. So, if somebody says, hey, I want to order a half hog from you. And it's like, well, you have to pay full retail price because that's my business plan. So people like kind of taking the consumerism out from outside of like the ecosystem of small farms and applying it to small farms does not help. I love that you want to spend $300 on meat right now. I love that you want to spend $300 on meat from my farm, but it doesn't work with my business plan to sell you $450 worth of meat for $300. What you can do is if, take your foodie dreams. If you're like, oh, I've always wanted to try this, like get excited about that. Find out where that is. Like you don't have to spend $300. You don't have to spend $450 at a local farm in order to support them. If you're just like, oh, you know what I've always wanted to do? I've always wanted to figure out what to do with like garlic scapes. Go do something with garlic scapes. Spend the $3 and like get excited, hang out. The best thing that you could do is to figure out where the intersection is of like what I care about and like what my farmers are producing. I would rather have somebody that like buys a $6 fresh goat cheese from me and falls in love and comes back, every week or every other week and buys that same $6 goat cheese than somebody that's like feeling like they want to be a savior and they're going to spend, $80 once.
Yeah. That's great. Thank you. The last thing then that I wanted to ask is, do you see anything either hopeful that we might take from all of this or anything that you hope might come out of all of that's going on right now with the coronavirus pandemic and all the changes that have happened, the effects on farms, and it could be about farms or more general, but is there anything you're hoping might come out of all this?
I think on the farm side, I know me, like I always kind of felt kind of like close to a part of my community, but I now feel like a more specific role within my community. So before it was like, I make food. I always wanted to make sure that like I was selling food locally, to feed my neighbors and stuff. But that was more of a concept. Now I'm actually doing it. And so I think that's important. I think that we as farmers are connecting ourselves a little closer, even if we don't change anything that we're doing. We're understanding that like we really are an important part of our communities here. And even though nobody's talking about us as essential workers and stuff, like when farmers needed to be heroes anyway, but like we know that like, oh yeah, all of this stuff is going on and it's essential. I think a lot of us are hearing our friends or people in the media being like, this was a really good time for me to reflect. And so I learned a lot about me as a person. I think the last piece is related to that, in that when everything comes down, we have the opportunity to kind of walk the walk, in terms of, everybody can talk about their mission statement of their farm. I want to feed my community. I, want to, X, Y, Z, whatever it is. For me, it became like, okay, it's literally time to put your money where your mouth is. So you care about your community and you feel like you're putting them at risk by going down to the city and feeding your community down there, and then coming back up here and then interacting with a lot of people, then you need to sit down and take a hard look at what you're doing, and are you willing to take a financial hit for what you believe in? And so I think that that's the kind of reflection that we as farmers have been able to do. You know, so I think there's, you know, the regular line of consumers being like, oh, I think they're, you know, recognizing local food and, you know, have more respect for farmers and stuff. And I hope that's the case. I mean, what we're seeing right now is a lot of people being very frustrated that farms don't work like grocery stores, to be honest with you.
So maybe a deeper connection that might come out. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for taking some time to chat with us about how the transition here and how it's been in navigating a pandemic and the impact that's had on you and the business. And just wish you and Moxie Ridge all the best, and really appreciate your time today.
Thank you very much.